In your packet was a recommendation from the Planning Commission on the inclusionary zoning ordinance that we've been talking about for a long time. That is one piece of the recommendation that's going to come out of the housing work group. They're still finalizing their complete report, but we thought it made sense to set a workshop, and we were hoping to do that for March 3rd to start going into more details related to their entire recommendation, and then also to get into the inclusionary zoning ordinance in more detail, because it is going to take some time to go through all of that.
First, I want to take a moment to thank everyone for their hard work in bringing us such a thoughtful draft for our consideration. This is an important issue, and I appreciate the time and effort that has gone into getting us to this point. I recently, or today, had a valuable conversation with Anne Arundel County Executive Stuart Pittman, a strong advocate for affordable housing in Maryland. He shared insights on the successful actions they have taken to increase workforce and affordable housing, efforts that have directly resulted in builders pulling permits specifically for these types of units. One key takeaway from our discussion was the importance of recognizing that each municipality is unique and solutions must be tailored accordingly. However, a common thread in their success has been reducing barriers for builders by cutting unnecessary red tape, lowering fees that drive up costs, and encouraging the development of smaller, more attainable housing units. This issue is one that I campaigned on, and it is near and dear to my heart. I fully intend to see it through because I believe it is critical to the long-term success and stability of our community. As with any policy shift, there are studies that highlight both positive and negative impacts, particularly regarding home values and homeowners' equity. Given these considerations, I believe it is our responsibility to carefully evaluate what has worked elsewhere before determining the best course of action for Easton. So with that in mind, I propose that the council commission an independent firm to conduct a comprehensive study over the next 9 to 12 months, providing us with an objective analysis of potential impacts and best practices. I think that March 3rd is too soon to perform this in-depth of a study, so I make a motion to do that. Do I have a second?
I'll second that. I do want to delay another detailed review of a newly revised ordinance, because I don't think we've answered the big picture questions yet, and some of them were raised a year ago, I thought, well, in the first workshop I attended on inclusionary zoning, which came from our town planner in his office, which were that we need to ask the question of whether this is an appropriate thing for a town the size of Easton to take on. That was a very specific question, and connected to it an analysis of what the costs would be for the town of the administrative and other, just the budgetary costs of the administrative activity that it would take place in order to, make such an ordinance work. Other big picture questions are exactly what our council president has outlined, that it's clear from studies in other jurisdictions that the impacts have varied, but that they have included a serious slowdown in building because this is essentially a tax on builders. They've included higher housing costs to the extent that it's been possible to pass those on. Mr. Gunsallus has informed me about other studies that find long-term degrading of housing values. And so on top of that, we have the question, which we should be addressing first, not last, of whether the difference that this could make in affordable housing is large enough for us to undertake all of these issues and problems. So I second the notion I am seconding the motion because I think we do need a serious study of this, and I think we should have some further discussions with the, about exactly how to, obviously we're going to need to write a scope of work for this, and we should put our thoughts together in how to do that properly. That might be a good focus for a workshop, since we should do that in public, It's just really hard to do a job like that if this is something the council wants to do without being able to sit down all together and kind of work up a statement of work that we all think covers the issues that need to be covered.
And do we have a ballpark figure about how much a study like that would run the town?
Well, it can be anywhere from $20,000 to $50,000.
I am an authority also on how much consultants charge for doing economic studies, and I would say that we're looking at $50,000 at a minimum for the kind of study that we would like to have, because it does involve some, taking a serious look at our markets and the literature, and so that's what I think that's a number we could plan on. But I also, and as for timing, we might want to plan for the worst and then work to get something quicker.
So, question, how is this, we've been talking about inclusionary zoning for a number of years, and we've had a task force and a work group related to it, and in addition to the work that the Planning Commission's done and that our town staff has done. What would this study do? What information are you looking to gain that has not already been looked at?
Well, as
And by the way, we don't have $50,000 in this year's
well,
budget.
I beg to differ. Having
already
read the
allocated?
budget thoroughly, I actually very much beg to differ on that. So, as I stated, it would be to assess the unintended consequences that we are potentially not even foreseeing at this juncture, and to be able to assess how homeowners' values of their property and their equity stake in that property could potentially be affected. I think that is the minimum that we should do, and that is the due diligence that this deserves. We should give this type of drastic measure that has potential for a magnitude of impacts that we may not even be seeing to be treated with the respect it deserves. So that's why I've proposed it this way.
And I think I tried to list, Madam Mayor, exactly what I think is missing, that in the year and a half or more that I've been listening to presentations and going to workshops on inclusionary zoning, it seems that the rationale is that we want to have more housing that can be purchased by people in the lower half, who have less than the median family income, and this would require that to happen. Nowhere has there been an analysis of what the implication of what any of the economic implications are, what any of the market implications are, what any of the administrative cost implications would be, and therefore nothing that to me comes up as a logical case for doing this. All we have is a problem that we think is something that we want to change, and here's a mechanism that might change it, but it may not be the best, it may be one of the worst, it may be something that fails most times when people try it, and we need to have that information, not just an ordinance which has been more and more finely tuned without asking the big questions about whether we need it or we should have it or not.
Final task force report. Now, I understand that Dr. Montgomery has sat in on those meetings. I have not sat in on those meetings. And I'm not saying that I'm necessarily in favor of the inclusionary zoning ordinance as it's written, because I'm not going to say that, because I still want to get the rest of the information. But I'd like to see the rest of the information before going down that path of possibly doing this study. I'd like to see the rest of it first, because again, I haven't been able to sit in on all those meetings. And once that stuff comes in, if the council thinks that, you know what, maybe this study's a good idea, then I don't see why we can't proceed at that point in time. But I'd still like to see the rest of the information before we necessarily approve of a study.
And in addition to that, I would like to see the scope of work before
Certainly.
we make a decision on
100%.
spending $50,000.
100%.
I hear what Dr. Montgomery is saying, I hear what Frank is saying, and I hear what Donna Botello is saying. My proposal would be, not that I'm against any of what has been said, let's have that meeting, and from that meeting, then let's make a decision, because I want to be fair to everybody. That we have a workshop, and from that workshop, then we will consider those items if in fact it's necessary or not, to give an opportunity to hear it all. That would, somehow I think we probably need to change whatever our motion is to have that meeting, and then we decide from there. I mean, is that fair and prudent, do you think?
Well, I think to receive the findings from the task force, and then we make a decision at the, was it the next council meeting was when you anticipated
Thereafter. Yeah.
having the results?
No, not until March.
Okay, that's amenable.
But, yeah, got a date or anything? Or?
Yeah, well, March 3rd would be when it's presented. That'd be the first meeting in the month of March, so that would be completely acceptable in my opinion. I believe that there is some serious doubts from some studies that I've read that this will actually result in the units that we are desiring. So,
But there's equal
okay, well,
research out
but
there that
we're
shows
discussing
that
a
it will.
motion, ma'am.
Excuse
So
me?
I said we're discussing a motion, ma'am, and I'm still speaking. So the, on the floor, we will be addressing that on March 3rd. This findings will be coming back to us, and then at that time, we will decide our course of action.
Just to stress, there has been a lot of work over the last couple of
I-
years that have been put into this topic.
Yep.
I
And that's
understand.
why
There
we
is a
are
serious
asking this.
housing issue with the town of Easton. We even can't employ a police officer, hire a new police officer, and have them be able to live in the town that they have been sworn to serve. That is a real issue.
Yes.
That is a real issue.
It is.
And we are
And-
talking this to death,
Nope.
and that is inaction by constant conversation.
I would respectfully disagree that it has come before us to make a decision on something very important that has serious impacts for the town. All due respect to everyone involved. I was involved with that task force. I'm very eager to see the findings as well. And we will be considering the amount of time, the amount of effort, which all of us have contributed at some juncture or another, and allow that to be part of the decision-making process, as we should with our due diligence. So I rescind my motion for it to be as stated, and that the motion I make now is that we will, on March 3rd, receive the findings, and then we will make a decision at that time, or after we have some time to digest them, make a decision at a future meeting. So we will hold on this for the time being.